Welcome to another episode of the Fortitude Forum. I'm your host, Bill Burke, and we've got another exciting guest for you today. I am so happy and excited to welcome him in because, number one, he's an ultra successful guy, but more importantly, he's a friend of mine and we go back quite a ways. He's the current president of Ohio Wesleyan University down in Delaware, Ohio, near Columbus. I want to welcome in Matt vandenBerg. Welcome to the show.
Bill, it's great to be with you. Thanks for having me.
No, thank you for taking the time. This is long overdue. I know we've got a personal relationship and we speak from time to time through text and phone. And especially when you lived here in Michigan, now you're doing big things in that Buckeye state that I know so well. So I really appreciate seeing your face. And I know that there's going to be a lot of value that you can bring to the audience because you've had a very diverse career, but man, your trajectory continues to just go up, up, and up. So grateful that you're here. And I want to start just by talking about really going back to where this vision for becoming a university president actually started. You and I both have some roots, really, even though we didn't know each other at this point, way back in Northeast Ohio. But you didn't initially set out to become a university president. When you look back on those early years, is there anything that sticks out in terms of what actually shaped your standards and your vision for the excellence that you would ultimately pursue?
Yeah, thanks, Bill. It is a story that I tell a lot. It's a story of failure and the importance of finding your sense of purpose, your sense of calling early on. So I went to Alma College, a small private residential liberal arts institution in the middle of Michigan, and I was convinced of three things when I went to school. Number one, I was going to be pre-med. Number two, I was going to go to medical school. And number three, I was going to become a doctor, a surgeon. And I was wrong about all of those things. I like to joke that I'm a doctor today, but not the kind that can help anybody. But in the way that I went from thinking I was going to be a doctor to becoming a college president ultimately is really important. This is one of my most formative experiences. I did organic chemistry, and in organic chemistry, you have to fit these 3D blocks that represent molecules together. And I learned that I don't have spatial reasoning. I'm not even allowed to put IKEA furniture together now. So it all makes sense, but I didn't have the capacity to really understand how to build those 3D blocks. And then I did fetal pig dissection lab. And I realized that I hate dissecting, touching, thinking about dead things. And if you want to have a decent doctor, they probably should be good at or able to tolerate those things. And so it was tough because I realized at 18, 19 years old, I was not going to be a doctor because I couldn't do some basic things. And I was absolutely devastated. But I had a professor help pick me up and dust me off and help me understand that there are other ways of serving humanity than simply being a doctor. And ultimately, I found my traction by taking a risk. I decided to run for class president when there was a crowded ticket for this. And I put my back into it. I threw caution to the wind and I just did it. I campaigned for it and I won. And this set me on a trajectory where I got interested in political science, which ended up becoming my major. But I rose through the ranks and I became class president the next year. And then I became vice president of the student body. And then I became president of the student body. And in my senior year, when I was president of the student body, I had access to the then first year president of Alma College, who saw that I was interested in different facets of running an academy. And so she gave me opportunities. She let me shadow her. And she was the first person to ever tell me, Matt, I think you could be a college president. And so I went from, at age 19, being a failed doctor, 1 year in the making, to graduating at 22, knowing exactly what I wanted to do with my life, having a very oddly specific sense of vocation. So I graduated from Alma College at 22 with this oddly specific sense of vocation, and every single decision I have made in my life and my career have been in service to getting exactly where I am today.
There's a lot to pull back the curtain on there, and you did a great job. But man, we could do, I think, at least 3 different podcast episodes on just that one answer to that one question. But the thing that really jumps out at me, I can't let it pass without pointing it out at least, is that mentor that said, Matt, I think you can be a college professor. And that is so important because I think we look at other people that we see potential in and we believe that they have potential or could do these things, but we don't necessarily verbalize that or express that to them, which is such a disservice. We hold back, but that one sentence sent you on this trajectory that you might not have otherwise went on simply because somebody transferred some belief. And I speak about this in my talk sometimes, is transferred that belief into you. And man, look at where you're at now. And I think that's just so important. And I'm seeing this in my own home with my son. I say things that I believe he can do. And he's almost surprised. You think I can do that? But had I not said that, he might not have ever had that thought. And we have to give other people that confidence. So I love that you said that. And when you were talking, I was waiting for that punchline, so to speak, or that crescendo. And there it was. So I'm glad you pointed that out. I'm just curious, in those early days when you're gaining experience and you were a young professional, where were the struggles? Was it confidence? It sounds like you had a lot of belief and that gained traction very quickly, but was it confidence? Was it competency? Was it comparing to where other people were on that similar path? What were your struggles early on?
Early on, as I was a college president, or as I was seeking to become a college president?
Before you actually became a president.
Yeah. Well, I think I was so ambitious to move on to the next step at every phase of my career that I was often faced with, I'm trying to think of the right phrase here, not an identity crisis, but like a feeling that you don't belong, that you've tricked people into believing that you deserve this opportunity when in fact you really didn't. And there was definitely a bunch of fake it till you make it. That was certainly the case once I finally made it to the presidency as well. But really, I think I'm going to go back to that origin story that I talked about, where I learned about how healthy it can be to have a sense of fear and failure. So like the failure story that I told where I realized I couldn't be a doctor, I've learned that failure is really the only honest mirror there is. The only reason I'm here, the only reason I'm pursuing my dream is because I tried something else first and I failed miserably. I needed to learn what I was good at and not good at, and what I liked and what I didn't like, before I really understood myself and who I could be and how I could serve. And I'm so glad that I didn't just eke out an existence in a field that wasn't where I was meant to be. And it was only failure that made that possible. I think inevitably you're going to face challenges, whether it's feeling like you don't belong in a position or anything else. And knowing your why, your purpose, your sense of calling is the most important life lesson, in my opinion. So my purpose is what has made me feel unstoppable, because it gives me permission, maybe even demands of me, to rise above every challenge and to do whatever it takes to succeed. And no matter how my life may turn upside down at times, I inevitably fall back into place, because at the age of 22, I found my North Star. And I think the other thing that stems from that early sort of formative experience is the realization that fear is not a firewall, fear is fuel. The experience of running for class president and throwing myself into it, despite being worried about getting blown out or getting embarrassed, it made me realize the power of not just playing to avoid losing, but playing to win. So I didn't just beat the competition, I outpaced my own anxiety by working harder than anybody else. And I'm reminded of that Jerry Rice quote where he said the reason that he was so hard to tackle is because he ran scared. Working so hard that you outpace your own anxiety and realizing that in doing so, you end up outpacing everybody else has been my approach to every step in my career. It's good if I feel a little bit scared or challenged, because that means that I'm learning and I'm growing. And whether it's anxiety or my work to understand how I should work with fear. Either way you look at it, being challenged and running as hard as you can, working on the things that you can control, those are the things that have carried me through every challenge I face.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, very well said. You alluded to something at the beginning of that answer. I think you were talking about imposter syndrome.
Imposter syndrome.
What's everywhere. Everybody has it, and it's not just people in college who are lacking in confidence. It's people our age as well. It's everywhere, and I think in the work that I do, one of the things I'm seeing pop up quite a bit in organizations is this problem with identity. And you just alluded to it with the imposter syndrome. Sometimes people have roles, but they don't see themselves as having an identity high enough to actually fulfill their potential and to bring other people up with them. So that's a hidden friction point for a lot of people that they don't even realize is there. We train for skills and talent and all that other stuff, but there's this hidden issue sometimes in people's own heads that prevent them from being the best that they can be. So I love that answer as well. Once you took over an institution as president and you really became a leader in that respect, of course, I imagine that there was some pride associated with that in at least on some level achieving your goal and your vision. But was there a specific moment that you can remember where you're like, okay, the honeymoon is feeling like it might be over now, and the leadership and the weight of this thing actually just got real?
I've been a president twice now, so I'm in my second presidency, and I can assure you that in each of those presidencies, there was very quickly a moment where I was like, oh, I'm the dog that caught the bumper. I'm the president. Honeymoon's over. I need to deal with this thing. And actually at Ohio Wesleyan University, again, I tell this story quite a bit, but it was literally my third day on the job where I took a tour of the library and I realized that I had to close it. So imagine you're in your third day and you have to write an email to 40,000 alumni, 350 faculty and staff, 1,600 students, and how many others, and say, hi, my name is Matt, and I'm closing your library, but I'm glad to be your president. So that was a crucible moment for me, and I learned for the institution as well. And one of the important things that you have to do in this line of work, and I suspect so many others, is look for how those challenges, those times when you get smacked in the mouth, are actually real opportunities to leverage your situation and make it into a catalyst for something better. And that library that I had to close on the third day on the job has actually become one of my defining points of leadership here at Ohio Wesleyan. So we closed the library, and instead of sitting around and lamenting the fact that we were without one of our most important academic buildings, this campus community galvanized itself around the understanding that we weren't just going to renovate, we weren't just going to restore what we once had, we were going to think about how to use this moment to create something better. We were going to create an opportunity for ourselves to do something that nobody else had ever done. And in our case, we ended up, after a campus exercise, defining our goal of using our library to place the fine and performing arts at the center of our campus. For a long time, they had been on the periphery, and liberal arts colleges are divesting from the arts and the humanities. We wanted to bring those back and put them at the center. So we said, we're going to set out to make the first fine arts-infused library in American higher education. And that goal was galvanizing not only to our faculty and staff, but to our alumni and to our donors. And in 3 months, we raised $45 million, and including the largest gift in our history, a $20 million gift. And it ended up becoming an unbelievable story of grit and perseverance. And I remember the fourth day on the job, the Columbus Dispatch, the largest newspaper in the state of Ohio, covered the story of the closure of the library on account of moisture issues. After we announced the $45 million in gifts, the story was epic rebirth.
That's amazing. I love hearing those stories of transformation and turning something that might have initially looked like a bad thing into one of the best things. When you've made those bold decisions that maybe not initially were universally embraced. How do you personally handle any criticism that comes your way? What's your internal process for steeling yourself against what might be coming?
I'm reminded of I think, Stephen Covey quote that change happens at the speed of trust. And so the question to me always is there the requisite trust to be able to facilitate the change that is needed? And so the question becomes, how do you build that trust? And I've always been a big believer that building trust is not just about what you say, it's about what you do. And maybe even more important than that, it's how other people experience you. And so I'm very purposeful about trying to relate to others, engage with others in a way that builds trust. So I tell a lot of stories. In most conversations I have with faculty or staff or potential donors or others, I find that I focus on storytelling. And almost always, it's a story about a brighter future. And what I do is I position the other party as the hero of the yet to be written chapter in that story. And that brighter future is really just about making our institution better. It's about making society better. So there's a broad call to action. And I find that when people think with you about how that story should end, what their role should be in it, as opposed to telling them the end of the story, you reach a much better result and people feel buy-in to do big things with you. And often it's a better end to the story than you would write if you were just writing it solo. I think another piece of this is helping an institution believe that they can achieve greatness. And one of the ways that we were very intentional about doing this, actually at both institutions that I have served, is using the presidential inauguration as a sort of a transformative, almost mic drop moment that helps people realize that we can achieve big things. So presidential inaugurations are they're customarily these sort of stodgy affairs where we speak in platitudes. We talk about how wonderful the institution is. We have ceremonial words and actions and symbolic traditions, and then that is the end of it. And in both inaugurations that I experienced, we said we're going to do something different. We are going to use this as a moment to say not only who we are, but who we aspire to be. And we are not just going to end it there. We are going to use that moment to announce a number of blow your hair back good news announcements that actually demonstrate what we are saying is not only true, but it's already happening. And I think in the case of Ohio Wesleyan, we ended up announcing 9 or 10 different things. They were big gifts, big partnerships. They were new initiatives. They were all things that surprised our faculty and staff who didn't know that we were working on those things. But more importantly, they were chances for us to use this moment on the horizon, this inauguration that was coming up, to galvanize people, to say, here's how we could use this moment. Now, what do we need to do to make that the biggest moment possible for Ohio Wesleyan? And it really was a galvanizing moment. And now we've actually made a tradition out of whenever we have big campus gatherings, people are trained to know that big news is coming. We're going to say something big about ourselves, and then we're going to prove it. And I think the ultimate sign that people are not only willing to embrace change, but anticipate change is that people will now say, hey, Matt, what's the big thing that we're going to talk about in the spring? And that's just where we want to be.
So you've made big news and a focus on the future part of the culture, it sounds, which I love. You've used the word rebellion to describe your leadership, which I think it's a great word. Not enough people use that or actually deploy that in their own roles. At a performance level, though, how would you define exactly what you're rebelling against? Is it the status quo? Is it mediocrity? Is it tradition? Is it complacency? Have you ever actually defined what you're rebelling against?
Yeah, we're rebelling against all the stuff that's broken in higher education. And you named several of the things. So some of them include tradition that is simply there for the sake of tradition. They include rules that don't really serve today's students and families all that well. They include an understanding that faculty and staff and administration are always supposed to be doing this. Those are the big things that we think are not worthwhile components of higher education. And so we say we don't just rebel against that stuff that is broken, the incrementalist, ivory tower, everyone against each other sort of attitude. And we talk about a rebellion for things. And the big three things that we tend to talk about are boldness, kindness, and innovation. And for boldness, it's, are we moving the needle with the way that we are thinking and acting? Or are we just hiding behind the safety of incrementalism? Incrementalist thinking is not going to save small private residential liberal arts institutions or any other organizations that need to think radically differently about how to not just survive, but thrive. For kindness, it's, are we acting only in self-interest? Or are we actually leveraging the things that we have so that everyone else can have more? And then with innovation, are we beholden to someone else's rules, the ways of doing things? Or are we recalibrating how we approach problem solving and opportunity seizing by saying to ourselves and embracing the mentality of, we're only limited by our own imagination. So if we should feel free to think creatively, to think boldly, and to find new ways of solving problems and helping to create value where it didn't otherwise exist.
Yeah, I love that. And I think what that really provides for everybody is clarity. Those four things really provide a framework for the institution and where it's going. And they're not just your run of the mill buzzwords. I think it sounds like a lot of thought have gone into those four things and the descriptions of them. I also want to ask you about this. Peak performance is, and you're definitely in a position where you're a leader and you've got to perform at your best so you can help other people perform at their best. But it really requires a lot of energy management as well. So how do you personally protect your clarity and decision making when you've got a calendar that's full and stakeholders asking questions and a million other things coming at you?
It is a constant struggle, and I won't pretend to have it all figured out, but it does start with having a great team around you and hiring the right people so that they can tell you what to do, as opposed to hiring great people and then telling them what to do. And I tend to encourage decision making I push decisions to them because they are the experts, and I encourage them to push decisions to their team so that we are making decisions as close to the ground as humanly possible. So one way of keeping energy high is that I am not saddled with because of the deliberate way that we do decision making, I am not saddled with the burden of having to make every decision for the institution, big and small. And therefore, the institution isn't in limbo, hoping that I'm making decisions on a good day instead of on a less than good day. I think also communication channel discipline is critical. So we have so many different ways of being able to get a hold of each other, whether it's cell phones and text messages, landlines, social media. You can get to somebody through public on your page types of messages, but you can also use the private message function. And to the extent possible, I tend to turn off the channels that I am not going to monitor so that people don't expect me to be every single place all the time. And I also will try and encourage my team to where I get most of the questions and the inquiries. I try to encourage them to use the same channel discipline that works well for me. For example, emails are for FYIs if you want me to read something, but if you expect a novel in return, I'm probably not going to be able to do that over email. So having one-on-ones, that's where we talk through things that require a little bit of a back and forth. When the team gets together, that's literally the most expensive meeting that occurs on our campus. And so we need to focus, yes, on key operational matters, but we should also really be focusing on strategy. Strategy is a risk, it's a bet, it's a theory about where you're going to play and how you're going to win. That's where I want the team focused when the team actually gets together. And having the discipline to be able to communicate appropriately in ways that give you energy, in ways where you're positioned to give the institution your best. Those are key to maintaining energy levels. And then I also make time for family, and I also make sure that I get a workout in every single day. I don't think I've missed a workout in 6 years. Every day I'm either lifting weights or running, because it is my time to blow off steam, to think about wherever my mind wants to go, to take out frustration and to get it all out of my system and to feel like I have done something before the day even started. Getting up at 6 a.m., 5:30 a.m., getting my workout in and then starting my day is another way that I maintain energy. So I think those are some of the big ways that really, it is a high intensity job, and I'm a high intensity guy, and I run 1,000 miles a minute. And those are some of the keys to helping me do that.
So here's one, because I struggle with this myself, but how would you, or what advice would you give to the listeners who might be struggling with being ambitious like yourself? How do you advise them or suggest that they balance that ambition and that urgency with patience? Because sometimes our hope and our desire to have the transformation take place, that takes a lot longer than we would like. And we live in a very right now type of society and world in 2026 as we record this. How do you personally balance that, and how can people start to do that better?
I'm going to go back to that original story and share what I learned there and what guides me today, which is that having your sense of why and that sense of calling, having the long game, is going to help you get through most of those challenges. Yes, rarely did I know exactly what the next step in my career would be. And often I felt frustrated that it wasn't happening soon enough, or people weren't giving me enough of a chance, or I wasn't performing well enough. And then I had to pull back quite often to remind myself that I was generally on the right trajectory, even if I didn't necessarily know what that meant for me in the current moment, or even the moment a beat or two away. So patience is a little bit easier to have when you peel back and look at the big picture and remember the arc of where you were trying to go and the why that you were trying to accomplish, the why that you serve. I think also remembering that you will continue to have to play to win to move forward, as opposed to playing to avoid losing. Sometimes you need to experiment. You don't know whether something is going to work out in your favor, and that should not stop you. So those are a couple of things that come to mind.
Yeah, so good. Just a couple more questions, Matt, but this has been great so far, and I just want to finish strong with a few more that I think are really important and can help the audience. So as a leader, we talk a lot about leadership on this show, and you're certainly in that position. The standards for your organization really equate to things that you either tolerate or you reinforce. So are there things on your leadership team that you just won't tolerate? And maybe a better side to look at, because it's a positive side, are there behaviors that you relentlessly reinforce that you've seen correlate to getting great results?
What a thoughtful question, an important one. For us as an organization and as a leadership team, I think we always feel like someone else's challenges are our challenges. And we will stop what we are doing to help each other to solve those challenges or address those challenges. And we apply the same mentality with looking at opportunities and how we hunt down opportunities. And I'll go back to the inauguration planning. So that was an exercise in us sitting down as a team, painting a dream scenario, and then saying, what are the things that need to happen to achieve that dream scenario? And then we made assignments, who had which pieces of that. But what was really neat to see is how people, because we were all excited about what this end result might look like, we all would constantly triage and work on the things that needed the most attention. And oftentimes we were working on things that couldn't be accomplished by a single person acting alone. They needed the talent of everybody. And so that being able to keep that fresh, having the agenda for the year top of mind is a critical thing for us. And the opposite, where you started, was what are the non-negotiables? You got to be there for each other. Your teammates have to be able to trust you. If you say something, you do something. If you need help, you ask for it. If someone else needs help, you give it proactively without them even having to ask for it. Those are some things that are different in this team than many other teams that I have been a part of. And they are the reasons that we can accomplish so many big, bold, and exciting things.
Yeah, yeah. Final question. Strip away the title and the office. At your core, who are you trying to become as a leader? And when your presidency ends, what do you hope people feel and see about how you showed up?
I believe that what we are doing here at Ohio Wesleyan is far more than helping an institution through a down market, through a challenging time in higher education. Yes, we are doing things to survive the moment, to advance, and to thrive in the years ahead. But what we are really trying to do, if you peel back further, is to create a blueprint that other small private residential liberal arts institutions can use as inspiration for how they might be able to do the same thing. We are deadly serious when we talk about the rebellion that we are engaged in, the stuff that is broken. In higher education does have a lot of broken things. It also has a lot of things that you can do incredible work with. And what we are trying to do is to show that there is a new way of approaching the world, of serving students, of rising to a new level. And we want to show other institutions, not just ourselves, how that's possible. And stripping away title and all of that, if I am part of a story that accomplishes what I just said, and you have my why, what else matters?
And we will end it right there. Matt vandenBerg, president of Ohio Wesleyan University, a leader, and more importantly, my friend. Thank you so much for being here. Really enjoyed it.
Thank you, Bill. Pleasure to be with you.